All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, looking forward to this one.
So today we're going to be talking about something that's been brewing down in the Caribbean.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's got some, some interesting implications for sports fans, but also maybe even like bigger implications for media in general.
okay. Yeah, I'm intrigued.
So basically, you probably heard of Verticast, right?
Yeah, I've seen it in the news a few times recently.
Yeah, so they're this media company that's been like making waves because they got the broadcast rights to some huge sporting events,
Huge. How huge are we talking?
like the English Premier League,
Oh, wow.
the NBA, NFL Euros, like all the big ones.
Yeah, those are some big names in sports for sure.
Exactly. So they had this plan to like shake things up down in the Caribbean. They wanted to offer a new option for people to watch these sports, but it hit a snag.
What happened?
Well, they ran into a wall basically when it came to actually getting their channels on TV.
Oh, what do you mean?
So you've got these telecom giants down there like Digicel and Flow,
Yeah, big players.
and they pretty much control the market when it comes to cable and internet and stuff.
Right, I see.
Well, Digicel and Flow, they refused to carry Verticast's channels.
That's interesting. So that's where this legal battle comes in, right?
Exactly. Verticast is claiming that Digicel and Flow are engaging in anti-competitive practices.
So basically trying to squash the competition.
Yeah, their argument is that Digicel and Flow colluded to keep Verticast out of the market and protect their own dominance.
Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky, right? Because you could see how Digicel and Flow might argue that they're just, making business decisions.
Right, just protecting their own interests.
Exactly. But Verticast is saying, no, this goes beyond that. This is about stifling competition and ultimately hurting consumers.
And it's interesting because Verticast actually had a pretty clever strategy going in.
Oh, how so?
Well, they knew they couldn't just like build a whole cable network from scratch down there.
Yeah, that would be a huge undertaking.
Right, so what they did was they outbid Digicel for those Premier League rights.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which was a big deal because Digicel had held those rights for a long time.
Right. And Premier League is huge GE in the Caribbean.
Huge. Yeah. So Verticast figured, okay, we've got the content everyone wants. Now we just need to get it on people's TVs. So their plan was to basically partner with existing providers and get their channels added to those lineups.
Makes sense.
And they actually managed to get some smaller providers on board, but Digicel and Flow, who were like the gatekeepers,
Yeah.
they said, no way.
So they were basically stuck.
Pretty much. And to make matters worse, it seems like Verticast really bet big on this whole thing.
What do you mean?
Well, they've reportedly lost a lot of subscribers and are struggling financially.
Oof.
Yeah, that's not good.
And this lawsuit is like their Hail Mary.
So it's make or break time for them.
Yeah, if they lose this case, it could be the end of Verticast.
Wow, so the stakes are high?
Really high. And it's not just about Verticast either. This whole situation raises some broader questions about competition and consumer choice. Absolutely. I mean, if Digicel and Flow can just shut out any potential rivals, what does that mean for the future of media in the Caribbean?
Right. Could we end up in a situation where there are only a few big players controlling everything we watch and listen to?
And potentially driving up prices too, right?
Exactly. Because if there's no competition, they can charge whatever they want.
It's like a monopoly.
Yeah, and it's not just a Caribbean problem either. This is something we're seeing all over the world.
Oh, for sure. Like, look at what's happening with streaming services.
Right, you've got these huge companies like, the big names buying up all the content, and the smaller players are struggling to compete.
And it's getting harder and harder for new companies to even enter the market.
Right, because the barriers to entry are just so high.
So this Verticast case, it's like a microcosm of this bigger trend.
Yeah, it really highlights the tension between consolidation and innovation.
Exactly. On the one hand, you have these established companies that have a lot of power and resources, and they're trying to protect their interests.
And on the other hand, you have these upstarts that are trying to disrupt the status quo and offer something new and different.
And it's ultimately up to the courts to decide whether those efforts are legal or not.
Right, and in this case, the court actually just dealt Verticast a pretty big win.
Oh, what's happened?
So Digicel tried to get the lawsuit dismissed.
Makes sense. Try to nip it in the bud.
Right, but the court rejected their request, meaning the case is going to trial.
That's huge for Verticast.
Yeah, it keeps their hopes alive, and it puts a lot more pressure on Digicel and Flow.
Yeah, because now they're facing a potentially long and costly legal battle.
Exactly, and that could make them more willing to settle.
So it's a turning point in the case, for sure.
So what does all this mean for you, the viewer?
Well, if Verticast wins, it could mean more choices and potentially lower prices for sports fans in the Caribbean.
And it could also send a message to other big companies that They can't just use their power to stifle competition.
Right, but if Verticast loses...
It could have the opposite effect.
Yeah, exactly. It could make it even harder for new companies to challenge the status quo.
And it could mean that consumers are stuck with fewer options and higher prices.
So it's a really important case to watch, not just for sports fans, but for anyone who cares about the future of media.
We'll be following this case closely, and we'll keep you updated on any major developments.
Definitely one to keep an eye on.
In the meantime, it's worth thinking about, what kind of media landscape do we want?
Right. Do we want a world where a few big companies control everything?
Or do we want a more diverse and competitive market that gives consumers more power?
That's the question we all need to be asking ourselves.
Food for thought.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See ya.